All right, let's talk about the 2025 AI boom. It was a total roller coaster, right? Stocks went to the moon and then a lot of them came crashing back down. But here's the thing, amidst all that chaos, some companies just kept their cool. So today, we're not going to just rehash the hype. Nope, we're going to dig into a real world case study to pull out some solid, practical investing lessons that you can actually use. Let's get right into it. Okay, so this question right here, this is the key to everything we're going to talk about. You know the old saying about a gold rush, right? A few lucky folks might find some gold, sure. But the people who really make the money, they're the ones selling the picks and shovels to all the prospectors. In the AI boom, the gold is all that flashy, groundbreaking software. But the shovels? Well, that's the critical, maybe even kind of boring hardware that makes it all run. And that, my friends, is where our story really kicks off. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at a huge physical problem that the entire AI industry is facing. Then we'll jump into a pretty mind-blowing case study. We're talking over 1,000% gains. After that, we'll see how that same investment did when things got rocky in the market. And to wrap it all up, we'll boil it down into 4 key lessons for your playbook going forward. Sound good? Let's do it. All right, first up, the problem. See, to really get the opportunity here, you've got to understand the challenge first. And for the AI industry, one of its biggest hurdles isn't about code or algorithms. It's about plain old physics. We're talking about heat, a lot of heat. This slide really breaks it down. Think about a regular server. It's like the engine in your car. It gets warm, sure, but it's manageable. An AI server, though, whoa, that's a different beast entirely. It's more like a rocket engine. It's just guzzling insane amounts of power, and that kicks out an immense amount of heat. So much heat, in fact, that your standard air conditioning just can't keep up. It's basically useless. To stop these things from literally melting, you need a totally different kind of solution. And that solution is liquid cooling. This is the key piece of tech we're focusing on. Instead of just blowing air around, these systems pump a special liquid right over the hottest parts of the computer, just sucking the heat away super efficiently. And look, this isn't just some fancy upgrade. For the newest AI data centers, it is absolutely non-negotiable. Without it, they'd cook themselves. This technology became the critical shovel in that AI gold rush. Okay, so we've got the problem, overheating, and we've got the solution, liquid cooling. Now let's talk about a company that was in the perfect spot to deliver that solution. This brings us to our case study, a company called Vertiv. They specialize in all that critical data center infrastructure, the power, the backup systems, and, you guessed it, the cooling. And boom, this is the number that gets everyone's attention, right? Over 1,000%. That's a massive gain. But honestly, the most important words on this slide are right underneath that number, driven by structural demand. This wasn't some meme stock that blew up for a week. This wasn't a frenzy. This was a steady, multi-year climb built on a real, verifiable, and growing need in the market. And this timeline really shows you it wasn't some overnight sensation. Vertiv was already a known player in the infrastructure game. But the real rocket fuel, the thing that changed everything, was the hyperscaler buildouts. Now, hyperscaler is just a fancy word for the tech titans. You know, your Googles, Amazons, Microsofts. The companies building these gigantic data centers. When they started placing massive orders for AI gear, it just lit a fire under Vertiv's growth. And by 2025, the rest of the market finally caught on to how essential they were. And don't just take my word for it. This quote comes directly from the case study. The growth was explicitly, directly tied to those hyperscalers, the biggest names in tech. They were putting in huge orders for these liquid cooling systems, creating this massive backlog of work that you could actually see in the company's financial reports. This wasn't just talk. It was documented, real-world demand. Okay, now for the real test. I mean, huge gains are great, but what happens when the party stops and the market takes a downturn? In 2025, the whole AI sector hit a pretty big speed bump, and this is where we see the massive difference between a company built on hype and one built on real, essential stuff. This chart says it all, doesn't it? On the left, you've got those high-flying, speculative AI stocks. When the hype bubble popped, they got hammered, down 45% or even more. But then, look over on the right. There's Vertiv, our shovel seller. It barely moved, just an 8% dip. I mean, that's not just a small difference, that's a whole different universe. It just shows you the power of being an essential business. So, what was the secret sauce? It all came down to this: real, actual demand happening right now. See, Vertiv's value wasn't based on some story about what AI might do in 5 years. It was about filling contracts for hardware that was being installed in data centers today. The hyperscalers couldn't just stop building. They had to keep going, which meant they had to keep buying from Vertiv. That made their revenue stream incredibly resilient and defensive, totally unlike companies that were priced on nothing but promises for the future. All right, so this brings us to the most important part of our whole breakdown today. Looking at the past is interesting, sure, but using it to build a playbook for what's next, that's powerful. So let's take everything we've learned from this Vertiv case study and distill it into 4 actionable lessons you can take with you as you look at the market in 2026 and beyond. So here it is, your 2026 playbook. 4 simple but powerful lessons. Number 1, prioritize defensive infrastructure. 2, focus on the essential components. 3, be patient and let the big trends play out. And 4, track the real orders, not the media hype. Let's dig into each one of these. Okay, lesson 1, defensive infrastructure. We saw this play out perfectly in that 2025 correction, right? Companies that provide stuff that's absolutely non-negotiable. Things like power, cooling, connectivity, they tend to be way more stable. Why? Because their customers need them to function, period. It might not be as exciting as the next big thing in software, but that stability can be a serious anchor for your portfolio when the seas get choppy. Lesson 2 is all about focusing on the essentials. This is that picks and shovels idea in action. The trick is to look past the flashy headline tech and ask yourself a simple question. What do you physically need to make this work? For AI, it was advanced cooling. For the next big boom, it'll be something else. But there's always an underlying layer of essential gear. Finding those companies is the name of the game. Lesson 3. This one's tough, but it's crucial. Patience pays off. If you look at that timeline, Vertiv's 1,000% run didn't happen in a week. It was built over years as the demand for AI data centers just kept growing and growing. The lesson is to find these big, long-term trends and just ride them. Don't chase those crazy short-term spikes. The real structural shifts take time, and being patient is what lets you capture the real gains. And finally, maybe the most practical lesson of all. Track the real orders, not the hype. Look, a press release about a strategic partnership sounds nice. But you know what's better? A line in an official earnings report showing their order backlog just jumped 50%. That's hard data. You can find this stuff for free in quarterly reports and investor calls. Look for the proof. Verifiable contracts and a growing list of orders, that's how you know a company's story is the real deal. And just to really hammer that last point home, none of this is secret inside information. This whole analysis, it was built using stuff that's totally public and free. Company filings, financial sites, earnings transcripts. The data is out there for everyone. It's just a matter of knowing where to look and how to connect the dots. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this one big question. The lessons from Vertiv and that whole 2025 AI boom, they're not just about AI. They're a timeless investing template. So as new technologies pop up, don't just ask who's going to win the race. Ask yourself, who's selling the shovels? What's the essential, maybe even kind of boring infrastructure that's going to power the whole thing?